Good morning or good afternoon to everybody. My name is Jürgen Steinmetz, and I'm joining you from livestream.travel and eTurbo News, and on behalf of the World Tourism Network. Today we have another event, and this event will be quite interesting because we're going to go to Britain. And we welcome Visit Britain, Mr. Gavin Landry, who is the Executive Director for the Americas. So his jurisdiction to promote Britain is all of the Americas. That means the United States, Canada, and South America. And he will tell us a little bit more about the tourism situation in the UK. For those that don't know the World Tourism Network yet, World Tourism Network emerged out of the rebuilding.travel discussion. We actually started on March 9th during a non-existing ITB trade show in Berlin. We met at the Grand Hyatt Hotel in Berlin, and a small group initiated by the Pacific Asia Travel Association, the Nepal Tourism Board, the African Tourism Board, and us started to talk about COVID, not knowing where COVID is really heading and taking this world to. And now a year later, in December, the rebuilding.travel discussion was formatted into an organization, what is the World Tourism Network, WTN. And currently we have members in 127 countries. Among our members are many tourism boards, we have ministers of tourism, but we're really there for the medium and small guys. So we encourage everyone to join us. We both have complimentary and we have paid memberships with certain benefits. And probably one of the most important thing, it's a discussion everyone wants to engage in because it is COVID and we all need to learn from each other how to maneuver through COVID. We're going into the third stage of World Tourism Network very shortly, and this is the reopening of tourism. We have our rebuilding.travel discussion on the same website, and we also have a website we'll be introducing what is reopening. It's under reopeningtourism.com, where we actually report about or talk about destinations that are actually reopened for tourism and how they do this. Well, it's still, I guess, part of the rebuilding process. But our goal, again, are the medium and smaller guys, and we encourage everyone who's not a member to join us and be part of our discussion. We have a number of events coming up besides Visit Britain. Tomorrow, we're going to go to St. Vincent. And you know, St. Vincent was hit by unexpected eruption of their volcano, what caused a lot of disturbance in addition to the COVID crisis. Before we get to Gavin, I wanted to introduce actually three people I see here, and there may be many more. I'm trying to glance through it. I wanted to just recognize Professor Snesana. I call her Professor Snow White. She is in Serbia, and she is in charge of our interest group for education. She's been, I believe, on almost every event we have, and we had close to 200 events. And we're going to have our own educational event. We're currently working with Jordan on a training project for the industry. We are already working with the International Federation for Tour Guides, and I see a number of our tour guide friends are also on this call. Our second co-host, Dr. Taleb Rifai, unfortunately is in a hospital right now, and we wish him very well. He's in Amman, Jordan, and hopefully he will be able to join us next time. And my co-host, Dr. Peter Tarlow, who is also vice chair of the World Tourism Network and one of our founders, is in Texas. And Peter, why don't you say a few words before we get to Gavin? You have to unmute yourself, otherwise we will never know what's on your mind.
Thank you. And I certainly don't want to take much of Gavin's time, but I think this is going to be a really interesting session. So many of us, at least in the English speaking part of the Americas, and I work both in the Spanish, Portuguese, and English speaking parts, tend to have very warm feelings towards the United Kingdom. Even though many of us, our families may not come from the United Kingdom, culturally, we're all tied to the United Kingdom. And I think you see that in how people follow what's going on with tremendous interest in the United Kingdom, and the fact that we have an unbreakable alliance between Canada, the United States, and the United Kingdom. And we share a common language, we share a common culture, many of us, when we're in London or other parts of Great Britain, feel very much at home. And so this is very much of a world in which it's foreign and yet it's not foreign. All of us kind of feel like we're going back to our mother and father. So we kind of look as visiting England as especially the London area, which is what most of us know, as a visit to our parents' home. So I think that probably sets the stage. I don't want to take away any of Gavin's thunder, but I'm sure all of us are really looking forward today as a very special occasion. So Gavin, thank you for being with us.
Yeah, thank you, Gavin. And there are, I think we can let Gavin talk. There are certain, of course, some questions what's on everyone's mind. When will international travel return to the United Kingdom? We're all desperate to get our beer and our fish and chips in London, or travel in the UK. It's one of my favorite countries, and I always say, okay, what's your favorite place to go when you live in Hawaii? I said it's London. It's such a vibrant city, and there's so much to do. So when can we do this again, Gavin?
Well, thanks, Jürgen, and thank you, Peter, and everyone for being here. We value this opportunity to be with you today and also to join your esteemed audience. So as you said, Jürgen, I'm Gavin Landry. I'm the Executive Vice President / Director of the Americas at Visit Britain. And while I'm one of 9 officers of the company setting strategy and policy for the entire organization, my particular patch is North and South America. So shout out to my teams in Sao Paulo. We love you. We're thinking about you every day. Los Angeles, New York City, and Toronto. So shout out to those teams. And you'll see in my remarks today that much of what I'm saying is very much North American centric and possibly US centric, because these are the markets that seem to be in a path towards reopening sooner. Sadly, our market in Brazil is still, dealing with the pandemic, and we know that that is something that's going to take a little more time. So you will see that from my comments. Just so folks know, Visit Britain is the national tourism office for the UK. We're charged with selling travel to Britain, including England, Scotland, and Wales. And our mission is very simple. It's to make tourism one of the most successful and productive sectors for the UK economy. And to put that into context, tourism pre-pandemic was supporting 3.1 million jobs, over $112 billion annual economic impact, and is responsible for well over 200,000 small to medium-sized enterprises that are part of the tourism industry writ large. So it's really quite important that we bring back this sector 10% of GDP as soon as possible. So on to your question, Jürgen, in terms of when travel will return, England, Scotland, and Wales have all outlined their own roadmaps out of lockdown, and all of the nations are taking a phased approach to end COVID restrictions and reopen non-essential retail and the rest of the visitor economy. Very simply put, the UK government's priority remains to protect the public. It is as simple as that. So vaccine rollout and everything that's being done in terms of restrictions and regulation, all is to protect the public. Now in England, the plan to return outbound international travel and have a new set of rules for inbound travel starts from May the 17th at the earliest. And I can't believe it to say that that's just a few weeks away. Last week, the Global Travel Task Force, which is a pan-governmental task force that has a particular interest in recovering the economy, but specifically to recover the tourism sector of the economy, had set out a framework for safely opening international travel. So when international travel can resume, essentially those COVID-related travel requirements will be done on a stoplight or a traffic light system. So we all know the green, amber, and red. So green visitors arriving from a country on the green list will not be required to quarantine on arrival. The amber will have some restrictions upon arrival and need to quarantine. And the red will be treated just as the countries on the red list are currently being treated. And COVID testing will likely remain an essential part of protecting the public health. We'll just have to really pay attention to how these guidelines change. I think one thing the team has dealt with for the past year plus is just the pace of change and the unpredictability of change when it comes to conditions, and the subsequent restrictions or ways to manage those changes are necessary. So again, all of this is kind of telling you what I know today. What we don't know yet is which countries will be on each list. However, we're thinking around the beginning of May, when the government will also confirm if international travel can restart, around the 17th at the latest, that we'll know that first kind of foray of lists. And if you need more details about testing requirements and how to make arrangements available on the UK government website, go to gov.uk and you can learn all about it.
Well, it's definitely changing times, and it's uncertain times after all. And I think every destination, and if you look at Europe right now, there seems to be a lot of mixed messages. Remembering talking to Professor Snow White, let's call her this, there in Serbia has been really a good example where everyone is vaccinated and the country is open and functioning. I think the rest of Europe is getting there. And we're all looking at Britain because it's so close and so connected with the United States and with North America, where most of us reside. So once tourism is open in Britain, what should visitors expect when they travel to the UK?
Sure. So as I mentioned, we're taking a phased approach to reopening. And the good news is that England last week on April 12th took a step forward. That was last week, wasn't it? I'm losing track of time. But from that day forward, outdoor hospitality and non-essential retail were permitted to reopen. Now we're going to indoor hospitality, indoor dining, hotels, entertainment venues. They'll be permitted to reopen at the same time as the new travel rules come into effect, which again is around the 17th of May. As the visitor economy reopens this year, some safety protocols will likely remain in place, such as social distancing, pre-booking tickets to attractions, and requiring indoor face coverings. So we encourage folks to go to the Know Before You Go section of Visit Britain's public-facing site. And that is a program that we built to allow people to understand the particular restrictions and requirements for each destination attraction across the nations and regions of the United Kingdom. And so you won't be caught off guard, caught by surprise. And that is updated on a daily basis by the attractions and the accommodations themselves. You can also keep in mind that those social distancing measures are not only keeping people safe, they also mean that we're working to prevent some of the same kinds of crowds, particularly in high season, that we used to see at popular attractions. So what we're referring to is what is a more managed and more comfortable form of tourism. It sounds strange to think, but I know that I was in the UK many years ago before I started this job, and I went to the Roman Baths, I went to Stonehenge, I went to Edinburgh for the Fringe Festival, I went to London, and I was there in August. And of course, that's high season. And so my experience then is probably going to be very different than the experience now that people can get in this, what I hope is the rare window of time when these conditions will likely be in place, where you can have that more managed and more comfortable form of tourism. So there could be, if there's any silver lining to this horrible pandemic, that could be one of the silver linings when it comes to how people will actually feel in situ when they do travel.
Do you see there's a difference when you travel to Britain, or there will be a difference in visiting London or visiting the countryside? Is there a focus maybe what is shifting and promoting the UK to allow maybe the experience of regions more outside a big city like London because of social distancing? Or do you think the social distancing will be so much under control that London is still going to become one of the most favorite places to visit?
Yeah, I mean, London is absolutely a worldwide hub and is one of the greatest cities in the world, no doubt. And we are very focused. We have always been focused on selling the whole of the UK and trying to promote, areas that are off the beaten path, getting people to the Cotswolds, getting people to the wine country, English wine country, getting people to different parts of Scotland, Wales. And that has always been our focus. Prior to the pandemic, the reason why that was the focus is that we have been very successful in driving tourism and tourism visitation over the years. And so, really the one way you can, manage tourism is to disperse tourism to different parts of the country. Now what we're doing is similar. We're still talking about all those wonderful hidden gems and places that are off the beaten path, but we're also really focused on our cities because our cities are so critical. London is the key that makes the wheel turn. And so we need to recover London. I think the social distancing will be done in a manner that provides that wonderful, managed, comfortable form of tourism for guests. And yet at the same time, London will be running, back to occupancy and load factors, inbound load factors, and so on and so forth, hopefully from a variety of countries, but certainly early on from countries where there is a mutual exchange happening and that these restrictions and guidelines are mutually agreed. Which we hope is sooner than later in certain markets. We feel that the U.S. may be one of the first markets that has that opportunity to travel back into the UK and back into London. So to your point, I think it is definitely going to be a different experience at first. How long social distancing comes into play, we don't know. Certainly what travel behaviors are going to be just sort of short-term affected by consumers versus travel behaviors that are going to stay in place longer. We're all already thinking about different ways of working in office and out of office, these hybrid forms of working. That is a permanent change that is likely to come as a result of this pandemic. What are those permanent changes that will come in consumer behavior, consumer travel behavior, particularly that are related to the pandemic? We don't know. It's something that we're monitoring, and we can only try to keep track of as best as we can. Now, one thing that I will tell you, Jürgen, is that there is a huge demand for pent-up travel. And I can say that as myself, I've been—
That's around the world.
It's around the world, isn't it? And so we have a sentiment tracker that we've used across 14 countries. And as you know, Visit Britain is in 21 markets worldwide, but our sentiment tracker is across 14 countries. And during that survey, 70% of people said they were likely to take an international trip this year, and 40% said they definitely would. Now that's 70% said they were likely to, and 40% said they definitely would. So, and interestingly enough, of the 40% said they were definitely going to make that trip, almost 2/3 that are keen to travel had not yet booked or decided where to go. So this is a huge opportunity for Visit Britain and for us to try to get the travel advisors to inspire their clients and to redeem these future travel credits, these credits that people have sitting on these various, kind of attraction and tour operator books, convert those into the UK. And some are describing this in some ways almost as a race to win the summer. But certainly, it's a bigger and longer play for the broader economy. So that is a big positive, I think.
Yeah, so you are optimistic about return of the travel and tourism industry for a good part this year, or do you think it's going to take longer?
Well, I can only speak to you as what we know today, and I think I'm sort of a born optimist anyway. So I'm gonna share an optimistic message in response to your question. I think a number of the things that we have put in place, the UK has had a very, very good response to the pandemic, and likewise the US now, speaking specifically of the US, Canada as well, are making great strides. And so we are very keen to help recover the British economy and vis-a-vis the tourism industry. We've taken a few measures that I think will help. One is we launched what's called an industry standard. Some refer to it as a kite mark, called We're Good to Go, which is an initiative to support domestic and future international travel. Essentially, what happens is a business signs on to this program, and they have to go through a certification process and sign on to the government guidelines that are changing daily, but they sign on to them. Right now, we've got 46,000 businesses that have signed on to We're Good to Go. So that is a very, very positive part of what we've tried to do. We've also, as a result of our initiative here, and I'll speak candidly, some countries were announcing these types of initiatives, and it was what I call a cheap veneer with a high gloss finish. And I won't name anybody personally, but there wasn't much behind them. They were notional. Ours has a full-blown certification. I think it's 390 pages total, but it's for specific parts of the industry, so not everyone has to go through all 390. So much so that we were internationally recognized, and we're given a safe travel stamp. And Peter will know this from the World Travel and Tourism Council. So the safe travel stamp is a big, big plus in our favor in terms of how we've been recognized as a destination in the world that have adopted these safety and hygiene protocols. So those particular extra layers of confidence that we can pass on to the consumer when the time is right, I think give us an abiding confidence that we've done as much as we can do. And again, unless things change, we feel optimistic that there will be a return to travel, sometime later this year.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right that certainly the United Kingdom has done a tremendously good job, much better than the European continent, in dealing with issues of COVID. I think you're number 2 in the world after Israel, if I'm not mistaken.
That sounds right.
Which is really impressive. I was wondering, part of London, which is so much fun for people, is going to the theater and some of the smaller, intimate places. I certainly understand how it's going to be easy this summer to have people go to the British countryside or, to Scotland or Northern Ireland. Are they doing anything special to for the theater, for the musicals, for the places where lots of people come together in very small spaces? And that, I wonder, is that going to be a challenge?
Oh, I think it's going to be a challenge. I think it will mirror other cities like New York who are contemplating, measures that can be taken to safely reopen those types of attractions. And again, it's an opportunity that you might not ever have again, and we hope you never have again in your lifetime, where you might be in a house watching Hamilton on the West End, and it's a 25% occupied house, and you're kind of feeling like you're getting that intimate experience. So I do think it will be a challenge. Interestingly enough, our cities like Birmingham, Manchester, London, Edinburgh, they really rely on inbound tourism much more than the countryside. The countryside is very dependent on domestic and obviously some international component, but the cities really depend on the inbound. Europe being a particularly important inbound market for us. So of our 40 million inbound annually, Europe generally represents 70% of the inbound traffic into the UK. And so we are very much hopeful that our European partners and friends and consumers are able to travel as soon as they can safely. And certainly in the meantime, you have those green shoots that we're going to try to take advantage of when it comes to countries that appear to have had success in the management of the pandemic, as well as, this certification, which, if there's one hope I have is that there would be one global certification, one global standard. And I know the WTTC and the UNWTO are working on these things. It takes time, of course, but that would be a very big positive step forward, so that travelers don't have to kind of look on a country by country basis. We're wondering what's going to happen now with multi-leg trips. Some are saying that if the UK is open, where we would have folks take a UK trip and then maybe go on to Europe, other parts of Europe, that might not happen this go around. That in the future, at least in the near term, that it might be more of an in-country, so that we could encourage more Scotland, Wales, England type trips and have more success with that. So again, we're looking at it from a lot of different vantage points, but we are paying close attention. I will tell you that.
And I believe the World Health Organization today came out against any form of green passport.
Oh, did they? Okay.
Yes. So that's kind of an interesting thing, because the tourism industry, I think, very much supports what you're saying. And, so I was a little surprised when I read that the World Health Organization said—
there must be reasons, obviously.
Yeah, it was in the last few hours. So once again, we have a bifurcation here. One side saying one thing and one side saying something else.
Yeah, and it's of course there's a big discussion about discrimination against travelers that are not vaccinated or cannot get vaccinated, to keep the world closed. It's an argument. It's maybe a non-argument. I can tell you out of my own experience, I'm getting ready actually to go to Cancun. There's the WTTC summit, and by the way, eTurbo News will be live streaming from this summit. So on the same channel you're now, you will be able to follow the summit, and you can go to our website, worldtourismevents.com, and you can see the program already. So we're really looking forward to see what steps we'll be taking, how the international industry, the private industry is coming together and coming up with hopefully solutions that would benefit the rest of the world. And there are so many challenges. When we go back to Britain, what is on everyone's mind, of course, is mass transportation in the UK. The tube is one of the icons of transportation. Will they be operating as they have been operating in the past, or will they be operating different, or how do you handle social distancing on a tube?
Right. Well, I mean, I think it's very similar to what's happening in New York, where there are protocols in place. But yes, the tube, and in fact, the tube has been running, throughout the pandemic for the folks that are essential workers and so on and so forth. I will tell you one thing. I mean, just in terms of what we were just discussing before we get back, because I'd have to probably refer you on to guidelines on the UK.gov site for specifically what's happening with the tube right now. But the easy answer is yes, the tube is running. The tube will be running. And those restrictions will be in place for as long as they need to be to protect public health and safety. But one thing that's really interesting is that I heard on a talk the other day that it's thought that the tourism industry specifically has moved forward anywhere from 10 to 20 years in terms of technological advances that have occurred because of the pandemic. So when you think of biometric advances through the airports, touchless advances at retail, at attractions, so on and so forth, it set aside what's happened to our global workforce in terms of how we've gotten so much better at working virtually as Visit Britain, and really doing what we do as best we can in a virtual environment. Looking at the way that it might affect business meetings and events down the line, where there will likely be hybrid events that will have an in real life versus an in real time component. So there'll be a lot of folks that are watching things in real time versus being there in real life, and that's fine. It's just a new model. And models like what was done in Singapore, which I have to give a lot of credit to, where Singapore recently had a business meeting, and I think they had, it was either 1,000 or 10, it was 1,000 persons business meeting, but each group was 60 people. They put them into pods of 60 people, and never the twain did meet along the way. So you were able to manage that 1,000-person convention in a very different way and still achieve having a meeting where everyone got the content and the information, the opportunity to network to some extent, and still manage it in a very meaningful way. So, we'll be doing a lot of that, along the way with the UK. And it's really important for us to, just join together as an industry, because, as we've said, it is bifurcated. That makes it more difficult. I hadn't heard what you had to say there, Peter. That's fine. I'm sure there are good reasons. And I agree, Jürgen. It's a complicated matter. It's not a one size fits all.
Now, to go to a different subject or an additional subject, there was a lot of talk about the UK leaving the European Union and about a lot of changes. I attended an event with our good friend Tom Jenkins from the European Tour Operator Association in London. This was before the World Travel Market, the last one operating in 2019, I believe, when there was really a fear of the UK leaving the EU. Now, this all now happened. What are the changes? How can people travel between Europe and the UK in normal times, just putting COVID aside? What is the development on that front?
Yeah, I mean, look, I am not, particularly able to speak as an expert on every certain inbound market because there are different requirements. What I will tell you, the good news is that from the United States and Canada, travel to the UK remains the same. So visa requirements, other documents required by non-EU travelers have not changed. So that is very positive. There's also just a recognition how important the really US-UK hub is as it comes to transatlantic travel and opening up the rest of Europe. So the nonstop flights from dozens of US and Canadian cities are really important. And I mean, on a bright note, and just thinking about that, we look at capacity all the time, and we're very happy to tell you that Aer Lingus is now planning 3 new direct routes connecting Manchester with New York, Boston, and Orlando. United has announced a new direct route between London and Boston. And JetBlue is planning to launch its first transatlantic routes this summer, connecting London with Boston and New York. So while COVID is progression, the COVID progression and the vaccination programs are all going on, the regulations remain to be seen. Brexit will not have a significant impact on travel from the US or Canada. And we are hopeful that improved connectivity will actually make it even easier for Americans and Canadians to visit Britain very soon.
One of the improvements, and this also happened before COVID for American visitors, is that you can actually avoid long passport lines. You can use the machines, like the Europeans were able to do this for years. Now Americans don't have to get in these long lines and be questions about why they're coming to Britain. So this must be a tremendous improvement for American travelers specifically, or Canadian travelers for this.
Yes, absolutely. Those improvements and those decisions, commitments. We have some very good friends in our US UK visitor kind of passport programs here scattered throughout North America, and they're really good at their jobs, and they've done a great job of making sure that the e-lines, kind of the e-passports, were working really well. The average wait for an American through Heathrow was roughly 5 minutes. So imagine that. I mean, I remember 20 years ago, you could possibly wait 2-3 hours, and if it's a nighttime flight, that becomes a very long and arduous situation. 5-minute waiting time. The COVID restrictions and guidelines are all meant to restore the ease of travel. It's all meant to make sure that it can be done in a manner that is as consumer friendly as possible while still protecting the public health. And I think that's where we're headed.
Now, before we go to questions, and I see a number of questions already on the chat room, just everyone who has questions, of course you can put your question into the chat room, but it'll be easier actually if you ask them in person. You just raise your hand and we give you the microphone and hopefully the camera, and you can actually interact. But either way, before we get there, tell us what's going to be new besides COVID. Are there new hotel openings? What is new in the city? What should people expect that can travel to the UK, and what should they be looking forward to?
Absolutely. Well, thank you for asking that. That gets me to do a little shameless promotion, and I love to do that. So, you know, a fun fact about Britain, wherever you go, you're never more than 70 miles from the coast. Imagine that. Wherever you go, you're never more than 70 miles from the coast. So that makes it really easy to discover the beaches, the iconic cliffs, the charming seaside, and look for these things in every corner of Britain. Now, you'll note that Scotland is celebrating its year of coasts and waters, and that promotes the activities and natural beauty around its lochs and coastlines. Wales is also putting landscape in the spotlight and celebrating its castles and adventure products through its year of outdoors. And in England, the England Coastal Path will open in full this year, making it the largest and the longest, I should say, walking path in the world, inviting visitors to discover beaches, cliffs, seaside resorts along the entire coast of England. Now, a couple big attractions. We are so excited about the Royal Horticultural Society, the RHS's newest garden. This is called Garden Bridgewater. This is the largest gardening project in Europe, set to open on May 18th. It's just outside of Manchester, and it features a 154-acre garden. Think of that, a 154-acre garden for visitors to enjoy all year round. What a great attraction. Wow. We've got some great screen tourism that is going to happen this year as a result of some wonderful films. We know that almost a third of all potential visitors say that they want to visit places that are seen on screen. And so people have been watching Bridgerton. That's been a rage. And so that's getting a lot of attention. We're building itineraries around Bridgerton. The whole Harry Potter series, of course, catching up on The Crown. And of course, you'll not have missed that Downton Abbey 2 is coming out and will be out in December. So we're all looking forward to that. Of course, Bridgerton has gotten a lot of attention. And so filming locations and so on and so forth, where people are getting this Bridgerton experience has been coming into demand. And then, of course, Bond. You know, we got Bond. Don't forget, No Time to Die. It was meant to be out, I think, a year and a half ago, and it was delayed. The opening was delayed, but No Time to Die is coming this theater. So James Bond is going to be out, and the James Bond series always does a lot for us when it comes to encouraging and inspiring tourism. Now, on the new things that are happening, we have a couple of big new hotels, and I'll speak to one in particular, which is really, there's got to be dozens across the whole of the nations and regions. But one of the ones that we're really excited about is called the Londoner from Edwardian. This is coming this spring to Leicester Square, and it's in the heart of London's theater district. This is the world's first super boutique hotel. So that's a 5-star boutique hotel experience operating on an amazing scale. It has multiple restaurants, event spaces. It has an underground spa and a 2-screen Odeon cinema, and the property has 350 rooms and 35 suites, all while still offering a character that is unmatched. Now, interestingly, that Odeon Theater, that was the site of an Odeon Theater. So what was done is there was a brokerage process gone that said, we'll let you build this wonderful hotel, but you have to have an Odeon Theater. So that was not lost in the process of this particular development. And then, of course, in terms of the cities, we're really excited about the air capacity returns into Manchester. Manchester is just a fantastic city if you haven't been there. So rich with cultural offerings. Somehow Oasis, the band, is having a reawakening with the turn to vinyl now. So everybody wants to go and see where Oasis and the Gateway to the North. Liverpool, of course, is not far from London, about 2 hours north of London. You can go to see the Premier League there. And of course, the Fab Five, the Beatles Experience, as well as Strawberry Field, which is a new attraction that just opened there. And then, lastly, when you start thinking about day trips, think about the fact that really within 2 hours travel time, you could be almost in every part of Britain. Now, Edinburgh will be 4 hours by rail, but you can be in Cardiff in 2 hours. You can be in East England in 2 hours. And within that radius, you're talking about Brighton, which is a great beach area, or the charming villages of the Cotswolds, where you can go to Bath and see the Roman baths. Kent, which is known as the Garden of England, is a beautiful region to the south of London. Again, a day trip if you like, or part of an itinerary. And that includes the White Cliffs of Dover. It also includes England's wine region. And so people would be surprised to know that the south of England actually sits on the same axis as Champagne, France. And because of climate change, making champagnes in Champagne, France has become more and more difficult. So many French vintners have taken up positions in south of England and are making these high quality champagnes, which can't be called champagnes, of course, because that's part of the provenance, but these are world-beating kind of champagnes, and they have beaten actually champagnes from that part of France in blind tastings. So you're seeing a whole English wine country experience come on. Taittinger, as an example, has taken up a big position in the south of England. So that's a few of the things we have coming online, and I think it's pretty exciting. I can't wait to get back, of course.
Well, I can hear your excitement, and I'm getting excited just to think about all these opportunities. And we all want to travel again. We all want to travel safe again. And the UK is such a fantastic place, and it's such a safe place also to get this started. We have Paula.
Make England just a great place to visit. The weather should get better. It should be warmer. You guys should be really pro climate change.
We certainly are. Well, no, pro climate change. We are certainly pro sustainability and net neutrality. That's for sure. But there are 112 Michelin star restaurants throughout the whole of Britain. 112. I mean, people think of bangers and mash and fish and chips, and you even mentioned that, Peter, which I love it. I love fish and chips too with the mushy peas. But 112 Michelin star restaurants. The food scene and the drink scene when it comes to Scotch and gins has just exploded all over Britain. So it's not your mom and dad's British vacation, that's for sure.
Yeah, I was just in Northern Ireland, and if you want to sample whiskey, it's the place to be.
Yeah, no, Northern Ireland is great. They got all the Game of Thrones attractions there, and the Titanic Hotel. So Northern Ireland is a great place. We actually promote Northern Ireland to our business events, our meeting and event planners across the country as well. That's not leisure tourism, so I'm not talking about that today, but they are a great partner of ours.
No, yeah, food is definitely a big factor in Britain. It is not all fish and chips, absolutely. I mean, you have so many different cultures and so many different cuisines. One of my personal favorite when I go to London is Pakistani food.
Oh yeah,
absolutely fantastic, and I have my
favorite place.
Yes.
Oh man, the curries and the Indian food are so good. Birmingham has a whole curry row, which is just, it's every curry from every part of the world that you can imagine. It's just fantastic. You just don't get these curries anywhere else, except if you're obviously in those places where they originated.
Yeah. And I see my friend Charlie, he's a tour guide in Pakistan, has been on many of our shows. He probably likes to hear that comment. And there are a few questions here in the chat room. Again, if you wanted to raise your hand, we give you the microphone. Otherwise, we're going to go through the room. There's Paula Schroeder. She's asking, will vaccines be required for US citizens to travel to the UK?
That is still unknown at the moment. We just have to watch the guidelines as it goes and refer back to the things I said earlier on that. So unfortunately, I don't have a firm answer on that for you.
But don't the airlines require it?
I mean, some do and some don't. And again, it gets complicated, as Jürgen said, in terms of the arguments that are made around discrimination or religious reasons why folks wouldn't have vaccines. I think that there's a combination of efforts that are trying to prove that you're healthy. So it could be the PCR test and things like this that are proving that you're healthy enough to travel. And so there may be broader regimes for those that don't have proof of vaccination. Again, this is all being formed, so we don't know.
Right. Now we have our friend Diana McIntyre from Jamaica. And Diana we know very well because she's one of our tourism heroes. For those that don't know, World Tourism Network has a network of tourism heroes. There are 18 right now in different countries. And actually, Peter Jenkins is one of them for going through this time. And Diana McIntyre from Jamaica is another one for her effort in community tourism. And she had a question. So I'm just going to put you on the spot, Diana. I'm not going to read your question. So I'll let you, if I find you, just ask your question and maybe introduce yourself also.
Yes, I'm Diana McIntyre Pike from Jamaica, but I work with the whole Caribbean. And I'm very excited about the European UK business because they tend to stay longer. And the experience we've had is that they don't really get to enjoy our culture and heritage. And so we have a very dynamic program called Villages as Businesses, where people are able to come and visit the communities. Our website, I posted it there. It is doing well so far. And what I feel good about is that the all-inclusive, the traditional all-inclusive, like Sandals and so on, they like it very much because country style has public liability. We're able to take responsibility for the experience, and they're able to enjoy it because we do training before, you know, entrepreneurship training and so on. And the people get a chance to buy things directly in the community, like the art and the craft, and enjoy their food, etc. So I wanted to find out whether you'd be interested in working with us with a package, not just for Jamaica, but for the Caribbean that we have put together now.
Sure, we're open to all of that. I mean, my goodness, you may know someone who is a former colleague of mine, Mark Lee Wilson, who was one of the people instrumental in starting the CTO, the Caribbean Travel Organization. He still works for I Love New York, and he is a great champion of international travel, so, and certainly of the Caribbean. So yes, we would like to explore every opportunity. Please do get in touch, and if I'm not the right person on the team to explore it with you, then certainly I will get you to the right person on the team that could work on that project.
That's great. Combination stays, you know, like 1 week in all inclusive, 1 week in a homestay, that sort of thing you're looking at. Okay, sure. Thank you.
Yeah, and Gavin, of course, community tourism, this is also, I think, a big issue in the UK. It's offered, right? It's not only with Airbnb, there is community tourism in the UK, right?
Oh yeah, there are, and more of those experiences are coming online. So yes, you're absolutely correct. Lots of experience. I can't think of it off the top of my head. My colleague Julia or Allison will know, where there are experiences where you can actually go into someone's home and they cook for you, and they cook authentic food, and it's, you know, somewhere in the countryside or something. It's just, there's so many of these things that are coming online now. It's fantastic, and the way that you can experience these things is really terrific.
And we have Jalil raising his hand. Jalil, I know who you are because you've been on a lot of our events. He's part of our tourist guide group, and I think, Jalil, you're a tourist guide in Pakistan, and you had a question.
Yes. Hello from Pakistan. My name is Jalil Ahmed, and I'm the tour guide. So my question is that, as we all know, that Britain has got very importance regarding tourism in Europe. And my question is regarding that, how much time will it take for Britain to open its border for international tourists?
Well, we spoke to that a little bit before, but the hope is that there will be, there's a big date coming up, which is May 17th. And that's where the government will decide whether it will allow the outbound and international travel to restart. And so that is a big moment in time for us. We have every indication, based on an April 12th submission of the Global Tourism Task Force, that May 17th will likely hold with some sort of stoplight system. Again, this is all conjecture at the moment because things could change. But every indication at the moment is that May 17th will be that time period. And then certainly we'll all have to just adjust as it goes along relative to restrictions, requirements, and the like. So we're very hopeful that you know, later this summer we'll have the ability for at least some of our main markets to come back into play.
I'm going to just be very impolite for a second. I have to leave you all. I'm the police chaplain for College Station, and we just had a death, and so I have to go into police duty. So
okay, sorry, Peter.
It's not that I don't want to be with you, but unfortunately, when you are in police, you do what you have to do.
Take care. Sorry to hear that, Peter.
So yes, I have no idea. I'm told it's an 18-year-old who just died.
Oh,
so
no.
So I apologize for leaving. Bye-bye.
Take care.
Thanks, Peter. We had Colleen raised a hand, and I just wanted to give Colleen such a nice face the opportunity to say something. She said she's with the PBS family of National Geographic and did a wonderful session on the UK. Maybe you can tell us more about it. Welcome, Colleen.
Yeah, did you work on the food and wine? Did you work on the food and wine piece within National Geographic? Was that part of your effort?
No, I mean, that sounds lovely, but that wasn't part of mine.
Okay.
I work with National Geographic. So I'm the host of PBS's Family Travel. I see Kevin McCarthy here too. And his wife, lovely wife. Anyway, so I'm the host of PBS's Family Travel, which is nationwide in the United States. And I did an episode in Wales and Scotland a few years ago. And honestly, it was amazing. The weather was fantastic. And I just talking about this now, just makes me just want to go back. But as far as National Geographic, I work with them as a digital contributor. I take over their YouTube channel. I do Facebook Lives with them. And then I work with Travel and Leisure, speaking of food and wine. I take over their Instagrams, which is like,
That's
I'm also
great.
So yeah, so I mean, obviously Visit Britain and Scotland and Wales has all those things, the food, the wine.
Yeah.
I do love, I know they've got the Michelin restaurants, which I've been to, but a good fish and chips, I mean.
Oh, you can't beat it. You can't beat it. And everybody has their favorite location. Actually, we'd love to work with you, Colleen. And one of the things that's really driving us forward, given these changes technologically, is this idea of content, which in the past, when you think of content, it was always kind of canned content. You were struggling to have content that would keep up with real life, right? Well, what we're thinking about now is more, how do we make in real life content that we can share with a broader audience? So an example might be to have someone like you on the ground at Stonehenge with a GoPro or whatever, connected to a wider global consumer audience, and have you give a behind the scenes kind of tour of Stonehenge as an example, or the Roman baths, or attend some event like in Glastonbury or the Fringe or what have you. So that would be content that is non-traditional, I suppose, because it's not in the can. It's going to be happening in real time so that people can experience it. And we're trying to find more ways to do things like that. So we would love to work with you, Colleen. Our team will connect you.
Thanks, Gavin. Well, I'd love to work with you all again. And speaking of like that, in terms of live, that's what my specialty is live. And I think right now, like you just kind of mentioned, after this year of the pandemic, things have changed. These live streaming, for people to kind of just jump in and see Stonehenge is really important. And I think it's definitely an engaging feel. It's also very natural and very, very real.
And people are willing to do it more now. I mean, frankly, we've been locked in the basement for a year with our computers. And so we had to figure out a way to connect. And now, when you talk about doing this, it might be a kind of thing where, not so much, but folks are actually including this as part of their consideration process, that they might like to get a toe-in experience and have that behind the scenes and see the crown jewels, and then actually go and see them in person. So it heightens the anticipation, it heightens the inspiration. It's all good in my point of view.
I have a thought for you, Gavin, and everybody. So speaking of wearing a GoPro on your head, I had a GoPro on my head in Snowdonia.
Oh, really?
Wales. And we should have we should have live streamed that, but that was a few years ago. We weren't doing that then. But right. Yeah, GoPro, and I was terrified, but I did I don't know if we've done this, the longest zip line in Europe, face first. I like to call it not Superman style, but Superwoman style. It was terrifying, but it was an experience of a lifetime. So yeah, that would have been good live stream right there.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's do it sometime soon.
Yeah, that's so great. Thank you. That'd be awesome. Thank you for holding this too. This has just been a great afternoon for me.
It's a pleasure. Real pleasure.
No, thank you, Colleen. Fantastic. We have Johnny Nayar. And Johnny, maybe you can let us know where you're calling from, and you had a question, I believe.
Hi, Johnny.
You need to unmute yourself, please. No, you're still muted. No, there we go.
I forgot. Okay, thank you for holding this. This is really amazing. Really loved it. I represent this SAT, a non-profit organization for raising the awareness for the need for giving facilities for people with disabilities and the older and the mature traveler. So there is a statistics which is put out by Visit Britain organization, which says that people with disabilities who live in the UK, as well as people who are visiting, spend about 15.3 billion pounds a year on travel.
Yeah.
So I wanted to know, now that we have had so much time to think about all this, and lots of people are completely reinventing themselves to have more accessibility, what has been done to make travel for people with disabilities and the mature more attractive, more easier and welcoming?
Yeah, no, thank you for bringing that up, Johnny. And actually, one of our top priorities, I mean, if I were to list out some of our top priorities this year that are sort of pandemic agnostic, the real priorities we have and will continue to have are around sustainability. So we have COP26 coming to Glasgow in November, which, as you know, is a follow-on from the Paris meeting, and so many important things are decided there and talked about relative to climate and sustainability. So we are locking arms with the UK government on net neutrality and adaptive capabilities, and certainly mitigation on those lines. And then when it comes to the other major thing we're working on, it's accessibility, because, frankly, Britain is quite accessible in a lot of ways. And then there are other ways that we need to really improve that. And we do value it both from a moral standpoint, but also from an economic standpoint. It makes good business sense for us to really, feature accessibility and how accessible Britain is vis-a-vis or versus maybe rest of Europe even. And so we really are focusing on that. You'll notice on our websites that we have outfitted all of our websites to be accessible. It's part of an initial step we took, but we're looking at it in the round because it is such an important and critical topic for us to think about, for us to work on. And I think Visit Britain has a unique role that it can play in that space. So thank you for bringing it up, because it is absolutely one of our kind of pandemic agnostic priorities.
Yeah, and Visit Britain, of course, has a very good name and has stepped up to for people for traveling with disabilities, stepped up to people for the LGBTQ market and many other markets in the world. And Britain always has been a leader. We have Laurie Heifetz. And I don't know, Laurie, where you calling from, but you said you had a question. Let us know who you are first and unmute yourself. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Laurie Heifetz. I'm a freelance journalist. I'm based in New York. I've written for, sorry for the noise. I better start walking away from it. I apologize. This is New York, as you can, it's really a drag. I've written for USA Today, New York Post, different outlets. So anyway, I was just curious. This is a great presentation. I learned so much. I was just curious, do we have any idea when press trips could actually start again?
Yeah, great question. Why don't I do this? Why don't I have my team follow up with you personally and also on that matter, because that all is obviously dependent upon what's going on with the reopening and things that happen, from May 17th on. I will tell you this much: we have a huge commitment to engaging with our media and our press partners, and we have done an enormous amount of that activity in the past, and we are definitely committed to doing the same in the future. Now, it may mean that there will be an in real life and an in real time component. So as I mentioned before, maybe you have 4 journalists that are actually physically on the ground, and you might have another 10 that are being engaged virtually on the exact same press trip. So it could be a different type of approach, but our commitment, because not everyone will want to travel or can travel, and perhaps we can scale it even more, whereas a press trip that we could only take reasonably 10 people on, maybe now we can have that press trip, engage more and scale more. So we're thinking about it in a number of ways, but I will have our team definitely get a hold of you and try to see how we can work together as soon as things are shaped up.
Okay, I can send you my email, my contact info in the chat privately right now if you'd like.
Yeah, actually, my team will pick it up. They're in the chat, so Julie and Allison will pick it up, and that's great. We'll definitely we'll be in touch.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, and we will share we can share the information from our end. No, we know who you are because you registered, so don't worry.
They got you. They got you.
Okay, well, I don't know if there's any more questions. We are a little bit over time, but then again, we're not the BBC, so we're more flexible. And thank you, Gavin, for staying in here. But so far, it has been a fantastic session. And please, if there are any more questions we should, Gavin could respond to, please raise your hand now. I know there's been Julia Gordon and Colin Bidewell had some comments. So if you wanted to say anything, just raise your hand and we'd be happy to give you the microphone. And if not, we're probably a little bit over time already, and we can probably learn a lot from this session. And hopefully, Gavin, we can have you and your team again and update us about what is going on, because this is a fast-moving, breaking news development, and not only in Britain, in the world, and we definitely like to stay on top of it. I don't see anyone raising hands right now, so I wanted to take this opportunity to thank Gavin and his team for putting this together. This was wonderful and it was very helpful. I think we all got a taste of of the UK and Britain, and we're all looking forward traveling back to Britain. I'm certainly looking forward getting the same soonest opportunity. We hope that the World Tourism. Just one second, Charlie. We also hope that events like the World Travel Market, what is a yearly event for many of us in the travel and tourism industry, will happen again in November, so we can all meet. Now, I see a few people now raising hands. So, Jolly, just hang in there because we gave you the microphone earlier, but maybe before we go, I wanted to, there are two more, and then maybe we can wrap it up. There is Bob Giordano. You wanted to say something. Go ahead, Bob.
Hi, how
tell
are
us
you?
where you are. Please tell us where you are.
I live in a little town upstate New York called Saratoga Springs.
Hi, Bob.
Hi, Gavin.
Tis the law anytime.
I got in trouble with putting that on the stop sign.
Anyhow,
yeah. But listen, I have a lot of interest in England. Years ago, we started and got into a little bit of a stutter start with being a sister city for Chester.
Okay.
And as part of that, you know, we brought some people over there. I've been over there, and we were fortunate enough to have some of the racing people over there give us tours of a couple of different yards. Don McCain, that kind of good stuff.
The racing is fantastic in the UK. Yeah.
That's right. And the question that I've got is, you know, what do we see as far as restrictions on attendance at racing over there? Have we made any decisions? I know some owners got in to see some of the jump races here recently, but, you know, I've had some people asking me, whatever happened to that? Are we going to do anything about that? You know, we were doing more than racing. We were touring, you know, up there in Stoke. We were touring over in Chester. We were over in Wales, that kind of thing. So that's basically the question I have so I can communicate here.
Yeah, sure. Look, I don't know specifically the protocols that are in place for the UK racing industry. I'm sure the team can come back to you on that. We'll do that. We'll do that research. But suffice to say that, you know, that the UK racing is a hugely important of the entire racing ecosystem, as you know. And a lot of those Europeans will make their way to you in Saratoga at some point for your great race meet. Right. So we definitely are, you know, very happy to see that, you know, the likes of Newcastle and others have been putting forward their programs. I don't know exactly. It may be very similar to what's happening here, although you have some states like Kentucky where they're allowing, you know, guests pretty much, you know, to come as they are. And then you have other states that are like California that are managing that attendance program a little better. Here in New York, attractions will be going to 50% capacity, you know, in about mid-May. So, you know, all things considered, you know, there's progress being made in these things. So, you know, hopefully there will be a great Saratoga meet, a great Belmont meet, and lead up to that. But let me have our team come back to you, Bob. And it's just good to see you healthy and wealthy and wise as always. And thank you for asking that question.
Yeah, and the reverse as well, Gavin. What do we see as far as people being able to make their trips from UK to here? If you can share that with when your team gets up with me.
We'll do. Yeah, we'll do. I mean, it certainly, it becomes a little tricky because as an example, the UK flights into Orlando are hugely important when it comes to inbound from UK into this country. And as you know, Florida has had a little bit of trouble compared to other states managing, pandemic. So, the attractions, Disney and otherwise that are so popular with the Brits, it's important that both countries continue to progress on this vaccination and, whatever herd immunity does mean, programs so that there can be, there can be a mutual exchange of commerce and a mutual exchange of trade. And obviously those experiences on both sides of the pond are openly available.
Yeah, herd immunity has a couple of meanings, doesn't it?
Yes, it does. Yes, it does. Hard to say.
Thank you, Bob. Now, before we go, I wanted to, Professor Snow White, I call her, Snissan. I talked a lot about you already. In Serbia, she raised her hand, so I definitely want to give you the opportunity to ask a question or to make a comment. Go ahead, Professor.
Good evening, everyone from Belgrade, Serbia. It was really excellent, and maybe it's important for you to know that Serbian people are big travelers. They like to travel a lot to foreign countries, and also they like to travel to Great Britain as well.
Wonderful.
You remind me on my tours of Great Britain, which were a few decades ago when I used to be a student and work as a tourist guide. You go to London, one of the best tour operator at that time, not only in Serbia, but on the British market. We had a tour, I was working then in London, we had a tour of 2,000 kilometers around Great Britain.
Wow, that's great.
14 days, London, Stonehenge, Bath, Cardiff, then Wales, Brecon National Park, Aberystwyth, Conway Castle, Chester, Liverpool, Edinburgh, Trossachs, and York, and such things. And I can tell you, although these tours are very expensive, people like to travel a lot. So it is very important for us to know about the vaccination, because, for example, in Serbia in June, I think about 60% or more Serbian people will be completely vaccinated, so we can travel around. Nowadays, we can travel to Greece, to Cyprus, to Turkey, to Egypt, and all the countries in the Balkan region with, just to show the paper that we are vaccinated. So for us, it will be very important. And I think for the rest of the world, when you get the decision, how can we enter Great Britain? You know, is it going to be PCR test or vaccination and such things? Especially as Jürgen said, here in Serbia, we can choose between 4 different vaccines: Pfizer and AstraZeneca and Sputnik and Sinopharm, and Moderna will come as well. So, you know, our people are really good in vaccination, and it is very important for us. But for us, it's very important to know what was how can we enter the Great Britain? And of course, I can tell you that the visa is very expensive, because 6 months visa, or is £100. Then another visa is about £200-300. If you want a 5 years visa, it's more than £500. But we can't do anything about it, of course. I don't know if you can do it something about it. But I think that this this evening was really excellent. Thank you very much. I've heard so many new information. And of course, I hope that we will see you in November for the World Travel Mart, because this is for me the most important event in tourism. It was for decades, because I was in 1979 when it was the first one in London, and I was 2 years ago. Every year I was coming. So I hope that we can join together for World Travel Mart in London in November this year.
Likewise. Thank you for your comments, Professor.
Thank you very much, Snow White. Yes, and of course, the whole question about visas to countries and the cost involved with visas is maybe another subject we should discuss, not only with the UK, also with the United States and many other countries where visa fees are astronomical and not really helpful for tourism. This should be an open world, and I hope that Zoom and COVID will have one good outcome for everyone, that countries understand how important it is actually to visit each other, and how important it is to keep visa fees realistic and in proportion. And I have to agree with Professor Snow White, fees in the UK and in the US and in many other countries in Russia are really not in proportion of what it is, because visa should be there for security and not to make money, specifically not in times where business is needed. But on a positive note, not all of us need visas for the UK, and it's a destination to travel to, and we're all looking forward to visit Britain again. And this was a very, very interesting session for me, and I think for everyone else here. And I get a lot of good comments, and I wanted to thank Gavin for having spent now an hour and 40 minutes with us, actually more because he came in like 10 minutes early. And so I really appreciate it. And we hope to see you all again. So before I give Gavin the last word, I wanted to remind everybody, if you wanted to be part of our session tomorrow on St. Vincent, what also would be interesting, because St. Vincent, of course, as you know, was hit by a terrible volcano, and the island for most part of the island, as far as I understand, is evacuated still. And tourism is also a pillar of the economy. So we're going to hear more from St. Vincent, where it stands, if tourism is reopening, and where people can go to and how they can go to. That is about the same time tomorrow, and you can go to worldtourismevents.com and join us. Anyone who is not a member of the World Tourism Network, please become a member and join our group of almost 2,000 people. Many of them are tourism leaders. Some of them are ministers of tourism. But most of us are just people like lot you see on this group, people who are working in the industry, medium, small guys, small size companies that probably needs a lot of guidance and helps in this business. So we also invite, of course, Visit Britain to join us. Then you would become, I think, the 21st tourism board in our group. In any case, thank you everyone again. You can see the archive of this event on livestream.travel. It'll be up in a few hours. And then we're going to be rerunning this for the next 24 hours till we actually start with the St. Vincent event in the morning, our time in the morning, or evening your time, in about 20 some hours. So you can see it back to back on eTober News, on live stream, and many of our partners, including here locally on Hawaii News Online, and on our European channels, and also on our foreign language channels. And you can actually see a translation into your own language on the screen in more than 50 languages. So we hope to get this message out for Gavin, for Britain, and we hope to be able to have this discussion again very soon. And thank you, everyone. And if you do want to join World Tourism Network, go to WTN.travel. Gavin, you have the last word.
Well, Jürgen, I can't express how much gratitude we have for this opportunity, and just also for the group of folks that are on the call, and the wider audience for everything you do. It has been a struggle. This past year plus has been very difficult for all of us. And I think we have a mutual goal, and one goal that we can all get behind, which is to recover this important part of the economy, to get people back into travel, having the experiences that are so meaningful for our lives. And certainly, I remember the days after 9/11, the days after 2008. We will recover. We will come back from this, but we can only do it together. So I look forward to being part of the community as much as we can. And however we can help you, please do reach out to me and my team. I think we posted email addresses for folks to get in touch with anyone when it comes to particular topics. So thanks again, and good luck. Be well. Take care of yourselves and each other, everybody.
Thank you very much, Gavin. Maybe one last thing. If you wanted to get in touch with Gavin or anyone from the UK team and you didn't see the email here, feel free to drop us a note. Just go to WTN.travel, click on contact, and we'd be happy to forward it. Thank you, everybody. Good night, and aloha from here.